Yes, yes, I get you. I get it. But yeah, I mean, just I'm representing L'Officiel, which is a French luxury lifestyle publication, which we manage in the Middle East for the last 12 years. And so, yeah, looking at you, I can understand fashion is very close to your heart as well. And we also represent watch time. So I'm looking at your watch as well. So it's
Not good for the, it's not bad, it's bad for the, if you get robbed.
no, yeah.
Mind you don't get robbed in this country,
In
do
Middle
you?
East, you don't have to worry.
No.
You don't have to worry.
You have to worry in London.
Oh, I know. I know. We've seen the stories. We've seen stuff happening. But yeah, it's a beautiful.
I'm thinking
watch.
about getting a Rhodesian Ridgeback. Do you know what that is? It's
No.
a dog. It's a huge dog.
Okay.
Walk around with one of those, see who wants to come and nick your watch.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you're very stylish yourself.
Oh, thank you
Very
so
well
much.
groomed.
Thank you so much.
Very handsome. Don't worry,
Thanks
I'm
for
not
the
making
compliment.
I'm not making a pass at you. I have a wife.
So do I. Thank you so much for your kind words. Yes. No, excellent. And yeah, looking at Sadaf was great. And thank you for having us at this beautiful venue as well. And just wanted to meet you and understand in terms of, the entire brand seems to be getting reimagined, and how you're looking at it going forward, and what new can we see or expect going forward?
That's a big question. I can't tell you what you're going to see in the future, that's for sure. What I think we have to sort of just pull back a little bit from where we were as a business a few years ago, because I think there was a bit of confusion as to what used to be called Jaguar Land Rover is and was. And I think what we've done over the last few years is clarify that and as we start to reimagine the business, because in the past we called ourselves Jaguar Land Rover, and Jaguar was a small part of the business which will be completely reimagined. And then Land Rover as a brand was hiding the two crown jewels within it, which was Range Rover and Defender. And the idea of the house of brands, Range Rover, Defender, Discovery and Jaguar, is the vision to create and make these brands unique to each other and therefore unique to customers, and really amplify what is special about them. So that's what the reimagined strategy is all about. And to actually do that, we have to come from much more of a brand perspective than what has been the norm in the automotive industry. It's much more likened to what you would see in the luxury world, in the luxury industry, whether it's leather goods, fashion, watchmaking, jewelry, whatever. And from a brand perspective, those businesses do project themselves in a certain way that amplifies the uniqueness of them and the desirability of them. So part of my role is not just responsibility for the design of the vehicles, but the design and the creation of the brands, working with our marketing colleagues and our communications people. But for a long time, our business has been very fortunate in that, we had Mr. Tata, who's helped us get where we wanted to be, and also the cultural revolution that we went through to put creativity right at the centre of the business. That realisation that actually design isn't just about creating pretty cars. It's about creating brands and brand stories that are highly desirable, that will have the ability to not only enrich people's lives, but make good business. And to a certain degree, that's what it's all about. And this here is what we're calling a Range Rover House. We will do more of this, where we travel the world and we invite very special customers to come and see what we're doing with the brand in the brand world, but also with the vehicles right at the top of the scale, as it were. So that, you know, that's the sort of gist of it. In terms of Range Rover as a brand, I mean, it's got a unique heritage. It's been around since 1970, which isn't that long, really, in sort of, when you think of some traditional luxury brands, but it's still, you know, a fair amount of time. What is it, 50 years? 54 years. And it's always been known for its uniqueness. There isn't anything really else like it. It is peerless. It was the first, you know, complete luxury SUV, although by today's standards it wouldn't be perceived luxury. I mean, back then it would have been, but not by today's standards. So it does have a unique heritage, it has certain purpose, it has certain values. And of course it's always been known for its design. You know, you might argue the first ones are a bit quirky, but it was the first vehicle ever to be shown at the Louvre in Paris as an exemplary piece of industrial design. So design is one of our pillars of strength. So in terms of our associations with events or with partnerships or with storytelling, that's our anchor. But it's also about the total experience, where we're trying to get to a much higher level, so that when consumers interface with us, it's pretty clear what we're about, in terms of, you know, when you think about the multitude of creative applications we use now, whether it's social media, app, web, the built environment, product design, accessories, all those things are coming together to help amplify the uniqueness of Range Rover. And we'll do the same with all the other brands. I mean, Defender is equally as compelling, but in a different way. It has different values. In the same way, Jaguar, which is being completely reimagined, because from a product perspective, Range Rover hasn't had to go through the massive transformation that Jaguar is having to go through, because Range Rover has just evolved. Each generation it gets better by virtue of the design enabling technologies and by being true to that DNA, which we continue to evolve, and that's what makes it peerless. But Jaguar, on the other hand, is a complete rethink. So when they come in 2 years' time, a year and a half's time, they will be quite striking, and people will actually probably be quite shocked, in a good way, we hope. But then, as a luxury brand, like all of luxury brands, we don't have a desire to be loved by everybody. In fact, we try and be loved by everybody, you'll fail. Yeah. So part of what we're going through as a business, we're also going through internally in terms of our culture, in educating our own people as to what the values of this modern luxury positioning is, which isn't one thing, you know. Is this a luxury environment? Yes. Is it completely a Range Rover modern luxury environment? No, but that's because we've come in here and you know, we don't own it, but eventually we will create our own buildings that will manifest the absolute total optimization of those brand worlds. But people have been coming here and they love it. It's a great place. So that's the gist of what it's about. Clearly, it's more complex than that. It filters through everything. It's even in the world of sales, you know, in the automotive world, traditionally car companies love to talk about how many vehicles they've sold. You know, we sold 1 million, blah, blah, this week. Have you really? Yeah. I don't want one then. They're as common as muck. You know, seriously. So, and we know that luxury brands are very clever at creating the perception of rarity by holding things back. We don't necessarily want to do that. We need to be fair to our customers, but it does take a certain amount of time to order certain vehicles. That is getting better, and I think there is a limit to how long a customer should expect to wait. But there again, I don't think, you know, at the top end, luxury consumers want things instantly. Some do, but some actually, that desire is built by a certain amount of anticipation. So all those sorts of things are being very well considered at the moment.
Nice. No, fantastic. And as you mentioned, it's more about storytelling and, so do we see Range Rover House or, the other brands going into some sort of a deep bespoke, not only regular bespoke, like something like a coach building or, starting from scratch up, maybe taking a few years to develop a particular car. Do you think it's heading in that direction?
Well, clearly there's a massive appetite for bespoke. Whether we get to the point where we would do, one-off total new designs, that's a completely different business model. And that is incredibly complex. But, what we've been doing here with customers or clients, where they've come along and they might have some fabrics, they might have a colour. I met this Indian gentleman last night or the night before who loves mandarin, that orange, almost like a Hermes orange. And he had some ideas about what he wanted to do with the car. But we'll help curate a perfect car for him that he will love and will be unique to him. But it also be something you'd be proud of and you won't be fed up of in 5 minutes. So I think, that is absolutely a big area. And, a lot of customers, they want a Range Rover. They don't want it to be totally different, but they just want it to be unique to them. It's a little bit like the watch. If you've got a special edition or a 50th year anniversary, it just means a little bit more, but it doesn't undermine the integrity of the brand and of the products where there's more of them. Sure. Yeah. So, but yeah, the pure build from scratch is that's a tricky one, because you falling asleep, Paul. You're going to be talking. Think about it. And there's people that would be, when you bring Range Rover to market as a brand new vehicle, you're talking sort of, £1 billion or whatever. If you were talking about bringing a one-off car, building it from scratch and everything that goes into it, you'd be talking a lot of money. Now, there are people around that can afford that, but I'm not sure we are about that. I think we don't want to bring more to the masses, but we want clients to have the ability to acquire our vehicles. We don't want to make it impossible for them. And then clearly in the middle, you do have more volume, where you might argue that some of those products are more premium than they are luxury. A lot of luxury brands do that. And the reason I mention other luxury brands and not automotive brands is because I admire the way they present themselves and the way they communicate and the way they embrace art and culture to accelerate it. That's what appeals to me. And they have very high standards, but we don't want to be like any of them. We need to be unique, but they are aspirational. When I look into the automotive world, with the greatest respect to them, I don't see too much that's aspirational, particularly in terms of storytelling, even the way they photograph their vehicles. I'm not saying there's not good brands out there. Of course there are. Porsche would probably be one that comes to mind. You can't criticise Ferrari as a brand in terms of what they're about, but we're not about any of those, and that's what's unique about us.
Sure. Well, get your point. I mean, fair in terms of understanding that, we can't be completely bespoke, but to an extent we can be bespoke. But when you say about, having, like, for example, in the Middle East, what's happening lately in the last 6 to 8 months, you had some auto manufacturers getting into the real estate business.
You mean in terms of diversification?
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think, there are lots of opportunities there, no doubt. I mean, you've seen it's interesting that you're seeing certain businesses coming to car designers to help them redefine their businesses in terms of their identity in some sort of disciplines you'd never associate with automotive. So yeah, I get that, and I think what we've got to do first is get our brands to a point where they're right and all the products are right, and then we can evolve from that into all sorts of things. I mean, one obvious sort of direction would be you're seeing luxury brands going into home, doing accessories, doing bespoke products for homes, etc., furniture. We've already started doing that to a degree with Range Rover accessories. So it becomes a complete lifestyle thing. And in a way, when my idea of success is when people think of Range Rover or Defender, they don't instantly think of an automotive brand or a car. They think about something much bigger.
Right.
You know, the world that it actually sits in and its associated parts.
Sure. No, fantastic. Great.
But we have got owners, remember, that have got certain expectations, and you know, sometimes it isn't always easy to circumnavigate that, but generally they're incredibly supportive.
Sure. Fantastic. Great, great. Difficult one for you. Which is your favorite car from the JLR stable?
Car or brand?
Which brand, and particularly which car, I would also want to know, if you would like to say.
I like them all. Well, my heart is much closer to you know, what were the Land Rover brands, Range Rover and Defender. I mean, I've only been looking after Jaguar for a few years, but I'm quite excited about what we're doing there. But if I were to name, yeah, I mean, I've been involved in all of them.
Sure.
So I might say the best is yet to come.
Okay.
But having said that, you'd be hard pushed to beat that Range Rover out there, or even a Defender. You know, the Defender's got a personality all of their own. I mean, I'm not a big car fan anyway.
Oh.
No, I mean, what I say is, if you worked in a chocolate factory all your life, you wouldn't eat much chocolate, would you?
Yeah.
But no, I still love cars, but not. I'm interested in the bigger picture around the creation of the brands, and clearly the products are an important part of that, and the way it weaves into each other. That's what, you know, fascinates me, because we've got lots of great designers that can shape cars better than I can now.
Right.
But I know a bad one when I'm looking at one.
Great, great. One last question in terms of, you know, since you come from a very strong design background, I mean, what's the thought process which you have with your team, you know, starting from a sketch till a prototype to a production level?
Yeah, it's probably quite difficult being well, it is and it isn't. Some people looking from the outside might see our design strategies sort of quite prescriptive, but that is deliberate because we know exactly what our brands are about. So the first key component of each of those brands is its DNA, how that manifests in terms of its aesthetic, and for Range Rover it's about certain principles. And then for Defender, it's about another set of principles, and for Discovery, as we start to redefine that, and Jaguar, and so on. And then there are some common requirements or a common sort of strategy that runs across all the brands, and that is to do with the principles of optimized proportion, for example. You know, excellent wheel-to-body relationship. Certain fundamentals that if you don't get right, in fact, you should show the gentleman, Paul, that in Ian's room where he shows the old Range Rover and how it's optimized in terms of its proportion. Yeah, the relationship of the wheelbase to the overall length, to the height, to the belt line, to the screen angle pointed through, all the principles that give you a well-balanced design. And then there's another sketch, if you get that wrong, what it looks like. It's quite funny. So, but having said that, I think it gives the designers enough freedom, because one of the things that we've done with Range Rover is over each generation we've kept paring it back. So what makes a current Range Rover more modern than the one before? It's not its proportion, because its proportion is more or less the same. It's not its DNA of floating roof, floating belt line, formality, the front, etc. It's when you go into the detail and you discover it don't have waist rail finishes, it doesn't have roof joint finishes, it has flush glazing, it has flush door handles, it has lighting that's pared right back to a minimal appearance. It's those things that add the modernity. So modernity is really important. I'm not interested in what I call Zorro design. We see that from a lot of manufacturers, where, you know, it's a line here and a line there, and quite often it's done to disguise what is fundamentally wrong, and that is the proportion, because the cars have been engineered before they've been designed. So we do have a lot of principles like that, which are there right from the beginning. But we do give designers clearly the ability to experiment. But, you know, you have to remember that design, it's not a pure art form, it's industrial design. So it's not like I'm there as a sort of artist in a studio with great big canvases doing whatever I liked. That would be great, but it's not like that. But that's why it's exciting, because, you know, next generation Range Rover, what's that going to be? Is it going to be an evolution of what we've got now? Are we going to embrace a totally different way of designing it through because of electrification? You know, the next generation Range Rover, all electric, is out this year, and you'll see that it still looks like a Range Rover. Do we change our strategy and say, when autonomous driving comes, do we forget about, do we make the interior the total priority and then the exterior is a consequence? That was never the case. It was always, you have to get a balance between the two, but invariably, if the car doesn't look fantastic from the outside, nobody even wants to get into it. And everybody wants their car to look great, don't they? Because that's the way we're wired as human beings. So, you know, creatives and artists can pontificate about philosophies, but the customers are the ones that will make their minds up.
Yeah.
That's what I always try and remember.
Absolutely. Perfect. Great.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for your time. Yes. And yeah, lovely speaking to you.
You're very polite. Is there anything you really want to ask me?
No.
As if I'm not here.
No, nothing like that. But yeah, I mean, you've answered. It was more to understand in terms of, you know, how you're reimagining the whole brand, and from the design perspective, how it is not getting into the engineering side of things.
No, I mean, the engineering is always, you know, the car, without even mentioning the engineering, because I'm not an engineer, but I recognise that these things have to be great at what they're designed to do, and we have fantastic engineers. And we have engineers that genuinely want to deliver the design. You know, in the old days, it was anything but. I'm not talking about Land Rover particularly, but if you go back when I first started, the designers had designed something, throw it over the wall to the engineers say, can't do that, cross it out, throw it back, and never the two shall meet. You know, the engineers, I would call them members of the Flat Earth Society, and they'd call me a flower arranger. It's not like that anymore, because the person that suffers ultimately is the client. But engineering integrity and all the other things that sometimes those things can stop you in the bespoke area, because there's certain things you'd want to do on bespoke that in-house standards might not allow for, you know, things like colour materials, for example, you know, the way they wear, the way they discolour. Luxury customers don't care. They want it. If it goes black after a couple of years, I'll either clean it or get something new. So as you make this transition to pure luxury, there's things that have to change, which is interesting.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Thank you for your time. And absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Do we see you more often in the Middle East going forward?
I'm thinking about setting a company up over here to do bespoke Range Rovers. You know, Range Rover by McGovern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know if JLR would be happy with that. Maybe I'll do a deal with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can find you a good PR person.
Yeah, I know a great PR person.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sid. Thanks, Gerry.
Thank you so much for your time. Pleasure.